Guys, how are you doing? This is your boy Brian coming back to you this brand new video. As you know, it's always a pleasure for me to be able to make these videos so you guys know, talk about the things that we care about, whether it's movies, MMA or football. We talk about it all because we care about it all. And on today's video, I wanted to talk about the UFC, but not about the fighters or the fights. I want to talk about the main man, the man who made it all happen, Dana White. Why do I want to talk about Dana White? Well, because Dana White is really, if you look at him, like in the social media, in the media, like, and the way fans perceive him, there are some who hate him, some who love him, sometimes you hate him, sometimes you love him. He's really that complex character. He's a very complex character that people hate to love and love to hate sometimes. So I wanted to talk about him. But why do I want to talk about him? Well, because he's the man who made the UFC the biggest organization that it is today in sports, in entertainment sports. You know, it wasn't easy, right? It wasn't easy. He's the one man who gave us this big organization. So for that reason alone, I believe he gets the right to be talked about. And also is someone that I admire, right? People hate him, people love him, but I have my reasons for admiring the man that Dana White is. So maybe, hopefully in this video, I'll be able to talk about some of these reasons. Right, so let's start by his birth. Born in 1969 July, Dana White is the son of June and Dana White Sr. He is of Irish American origins, and that's all I'm going to say about his origins. You know, that's all I'm going to say about his origins. So Dana White decided to, after seeing that there is an opportunity out there, to approach the Fertitta brothers, who are his friends, to buy the UFC, to acquire the UFC. In 2001, they buy the UFC, which back then was a very, very small organization, was losing money to start trying to build it into the organization that it is today. But of course, it wasn't easy. For months, for years and years, the UFC was losing money. At some points, the Fertitta brothers were about to give up, but then they decided to give it another go, and thank God the UFC started to grow, until now that you look at it, it's an organization that is worth more than $4 billion. All of that thanks to, you know, the, how do I say it, you know, the strength of character of Dana White. Thanks to him not giving up, the UFC became what it is today. And thanks to him, we got to meet some of the biggest superstars in the sport of MMA from the UFC. For me, for example, you talk about Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, you talk about Anderson Silva, you talk about George St. Pierre, you talk about Ronda Rousey, you talk about John Bon Jones, you talk about Daniel Cormier, you talk about Conor McGregor, you talk about Israel Adesanya, you talk about Max Holloway, you talk about Dustin Poirier, you talk about Eddie Alvarez, you talk about Usman Kamaru, you talk about Tyron Woodley, you talk about Wonderboy, you talk about like all these big Sean O'Malley, you talk about like Jose Aldo, of course. Oh, thank God I didn't forget the name, Jose Aldo. You talk about all these big superstars that we were able to meet and see perform, and we are able to still see perform today. All of that might not exist if it wasn't for a man like Dana White, who had the dream, fought for it, and made this big organization the big thing that it is today, right? Thanks to him, and of course all these superstars, we have the UFC, and we have it now, right? We had it last year with big events, right? So what I want to say is that, like, thanks to the man that had the dream, still has the dream, still has the drive, we are getting the UFC that we have today. And for that reason alone, for his perseverance, for his courage, for him, like for his drive not to give up. We are entertained every 3 weeks with the fights, every 4 weeks with the big events, right? So for that alone, I think the man deserves respect. Like for me, when I see Dana White, I compare him to people like Vince McMahon, right? So he's really that guy. Dana White really deserves the respect. On the business side also as well, you look at some of the complaints that people or the media has, that like it doesn't pay his fighters the worth or some of that, right? I don't know, like maybe that might be a fact, right? That might be a fact. But let's not forget that the UFC is one big organization that has more than 400 fighters that they have to take care of, right? In big events, when you look at the big events, when you have the big fights, like big main events, whether it's in the UFC or in boxing, you have to pay the big stars a certain amount of cash, and then you have the little men, the small, like upcoming fighters that are not really popular, that you have to pay also take care of. For me, when I look at it the way proportionally, you look at the UFC and you compare it to the boxing, I believe like the UFC is doing better in terms of taking care of the fighters, proportionally, like the little fighters. When it comes to superstar, yeah, I cannot deny it, right? When Canelo is fighting, he's getting 50 million, 70 million, like 40 million. When it's in the UFC, you have someone like Israel Adesanya, or you have someone like John Jones fighting. It's like maybe 2-4 million. For John Jones, maybe 8 million a fight. For Conor McGregor, the biggest star, he gets like 20 million, or yes, when it comes to big superstars, the boxing pays better. But when it comes to the little fighters, the upcoming guys, I believe proportionally UFC is doing a better job. And also you look at what as an organization, like what the UFC and Dana White have been able to do, like to create, to build all these, places that fighters can go and train, the training centers, whether it's like in the UFC, in the US, they have many training centers like where people can come and fight and learn about MMA, and you look at the project that he has to building the sports in Mexico, like also building a big training center in Mexico. I believe like for that reason alone, you might understand, like I do get that, like ultimately is making more money out of it, but he's also giving way more opportunity than any other sports does. So for that reason alone, also I admire him. One more thing I want to talk about Dana White is his loyalty. If you look at people, sometimes you help people, right? Sometimes you help people, and years later, when they're able to make it, they forget that you've ever helped them. That is something that I've noticed that Dana White doesn't have, right? You help him once, or you are straight with him and you are loyal to him, he's going to be loyal to you, like for the rest of the time that he might have. Like you look at his relationship with the Fertitta brothers, you look at his relationship with Donald Trump. Dana White is that person who's going to stick by you if you stuck by him at some point in his life, right? So it's like his loyalty is something that is very, very, very underrated. If you look at the life of Dana White, one thing that is one thing that really comes across is like the loyalty of Dana White. Now, if you get in the wrong side of Dana White, you get in his wrong side forever. Like it's mostly forever. you rarely see Dana White, you know, trying to stitch up relationship or fix things, right? So if you are good with him, you are good with him. He's going to take care of you. He's going to like you and respect you for the rest of your life. And if you go and eat the wrong side, it's going to be very difficult, very, very difficult for you to patch things up and get in the right side again. So these are characteristics of Dana White and the things that he has done that pushes me to really respect the guy. And also his fight for like free speech. He allows his fighter to say whatever they want, and as long as they can, they are willing to take accountability for what they say. He doesn't censor his fighters, and that is something that you have to respect. At the least minimum, you have to respect and appreciate. So I believe I've spoken about the things that I really appreciate about the man that Dana White is. Big businessman, someone who doesn't give up, a good friend. If he's your friend, he's going to take care of you. As long as you are loyal to him, he's going to stay loyal to you. If you've helped him at some point, he's not just going to be that person who forgets about the help. Like, how, no matter how small it was, it's something, someone who's going to remember it. If you go on this wrong side, you are also in some ways, you know, effed, you know. And also the fact that he really allows his fighter to say whatever they want. There is no censure. Like, you want to talk about the issue of race, talk about it the way you want. You want to talk about the issue of like LGBT, talk about it the way you want. You want to talk about the issue of like American, like the issues that America is facing today, the world is facing today. You talk about it the way you want. Take accountability as well you can. And I really appreciate Dana White for those reasons. And I hope this video was at least interesting in some ways. If you liked it, like, subscribe, and comment down below. Let me know what you think about Dana White as a person, as a businessman, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you and see you soon. Bye bye.